what gives you hope? Where are areas that you guys, see progress and think about areas that are standing out to you in your day-to-day jobs on the front lines? How do you want to start? Unless you want me to call.
I'll take that first step. So, given my orientation, I tend to be paying a lot of attention to whether there are new treatments coming out. And I think really in just in the last couple of years, 2 to 3 years, there's a lot of things that are appearing on the horizon. Nothing that's been FDA approved yet, but things in very late stage development. Things like neurosteroids, a compound called brexanolone, a compound from our company called esketamine, compounds from Allergan called rapastanil, and several others that are working by heretofore unknown mechanisms. While they're not completely so the glass half empty part of this is that a lot of psychopharmacology has been driven by accidental discovery, and that's not really a business model, and not one that I think companies want to get behind. And some of these certainly fall into that category. But the flip side of it is we really want to help patients at the end of the day. So if you trip upon something that seems to be unique and helpful, you don't want to ignore it either. So I think companies are trying to leverage some of these discoveries. The few things that I mentioned may have some overlaps in how they work, but they're probably also fairly distinct. So the possibility of having things that can actually be rapid onset in a disease that's marked by suicide, it's absolutely critical. So that's pretty exciting. And being able to basically help a large fraction of patients that are incompletely helped by current medications that we're seeing some of these drugs treat. So those are things that I'm somewhat optimistic about.
I think I'm hopeful that we're having this discussion. When I started in the investing world in, I think, 96 or 97, this was not a sector that anybody discussed. There was discussions around new therapeutic treatments, but really it was sort of the dirty secret that nobody wanted to talk about. And I think everybody sort of quietly knew there was a tremendous prevalence of it, which is, in my opinion, vastly understated. And then there was sort of a resignation that the only treatments were difficult to access and really expensive. And so if anything's been encouraged, I would say in the last 6 months, I've probably seen 50 to 70 investment opportunities in varying stages of behavioral health, and that includes everything from anxiety, mood disorders. We should talk. We have an investment company that treats OCD, to a lot of companies focused on substance abuse disorders. You name it. Peer support networks, as you mentioned, Ken. Integrated models, and one I think we've learned is that as everybody else probably in the healthcare world has already known, is that behavioral health problems are comorbid with almost every other major chronic disease. And so what gets us really excited is that this idea of treating the whole person, that you have a cancer diagnosis, you have a behavioral health issue. You have diabetes or ALS or MS or some other chronic ailment, you have a behavioral health ailment. It comes with, you have a cabbage. Ever talked to somebody who just had a cabbage done? Massive incidence of depression after you have major heart surgery. I mean, go down the line, every single subspecialty, and you're going to see comorbid situations with behavioral health, and largely they were ignored. If you ever went to a hospital, healthcare is silent, right? This department treats this department treats that, this department treats that. Well, now we're seeing integrated models where behavioral health is becoming parcel of that team, and that they're viewed not just as sort of a tangential thing, but as central to the health of the patient. And I think we can all look at even anecdotal data. People talk about cancer patients who do better, who have or a better state of mind, and are not depressed, and feel connected within their caregiver community and among their friends. So I think there's a lot of anecdotal data that suggests that it matters. And I think just the sheer fact that everybody's writing checks and funding this and highlighting it and putting a light on it is really encouraging.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe just to add, I'll give my investor 2 cents on that. We have seen a floodgate. And obviously there's the media attention associated with opioid addiction, which I think is top of mind for a lot of individuals, about how to create different centers of excellence in inpatient care, outpatient care, and transitions in care. And the mix between pharmaceutical interventions as well as more digital or physician-based, interactions and coaching. I feel like coaching is like a light word to describe what really needs to happen for someone who has addiction and who needs to be really helped out in a much more intensive way. But we see the same thing, and the talent is extraordinary. It's pretty inspiring. Ken, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, in my travels in my Blue Cross Advanced Health Insurance Fellowship, that's how I think about it. I just want to learn more about this world. If you work for a large company, your HR department decides what benefits you get. So if you have a zero copay for methadone, that's a decision that your team has made. If you have access to teletherapy, that's a decision your HR team has made. This has been a great learning adventure for me because I'm not sure I fully understood that. I knew this wasn't France and there wasn't one set of benefits that were national, but at a more sophisticated level, to really realize that the person at Dunkin' Donuts might or might not have certain benefits that you want. In my travels, I'm now seeing a tremendous increase in interest in this set of problems. So the union's number one issue is pain and avoidance of opiates and addiction. They're burying their members who suffer injuries and then the addiction problems. A lot of other companies are very interested from the comorbid angle. Cancer plus depression, cardiac plus depression costs 2 to 3 to 4 times as much. So whether they get there because they're losing people or because they have consciousness about cost and quality of life, they're increasingly interested in this. I no longer have to try to get invited to things, right? People pull me into things. Ken, we want to go meet with this account. It's a really huge account, a company you would know. They're very interested in their employee distress, anxiety, depression, their children's autism spectrum disorder. What are we doing about that? What expertise do we have? These are questions that were basically unheard of 5 years ago. And so I've been there 7 years. The other thing that gives me hope is I hang out with psychiatric residents. Harvard has a comedy of high-end residencies here in Boston. We recruit amazing people. And these people are thinking biologically, they're thinking systemically, they're thinking in an integrated manner, they're open to technology. So while the team takes a really long time to build, the farm team is quite strong. The number of residents going into psychiatry has gone up 8 consecutive years. So while there is a workforce problem, the people we're attracting, at least that I get to run into, here in Boston, they're smarter than we were, than my cohort. They're more sophisticated. They think more systemically. Most of them have done something beforehand that's meaningful, different. A PhD, they started a tech company. Like, they're just kind of remarkable people, and they chose this. They could have done anything.
Justin, no pressure.
Yeah, Justin. Yeah, Justin.
I mean, maybe you can just explain what your institute is, because then we can just say basically we're talking about you. But
so I think this is all great. I mean, for me, what gives me hope is a lot of the things that have been said. I mean, this is a capitated system where now you have payers who actually have to pay attention to mental health because that's where the money is being spent. So if you're responsible for paying for the whole health, you're going to prioritize mental health. But then what also gives, and I do see that the junior people are coming into psychiatry, people with really strong neuroscience backgrounds, who really care about the details, are coming into psychiatry, whereas even 5-10 years ago they were going into medicine or neurology. Primarily, I was one of the very few PhDs coming into psychiatry, whereas it's still definitely not the most common type of psychiatrist, but I see a lot more quantitative minds kind of gravitating here. The thing though that gives me, I think, the most hope in the short term, like as a somebody with a 6-year-old who in 10 years, where's that kid going to be? How am I going to take good care of him? I can't put my own money on a new compound being able to treat depression, but what I think really is inspiring to me is the ways that software can be a platform where we can operationalize behavioral health strategies that work great when you have a human who's able to take the time and be with you, but given we don't, usually have that, how do we build systems that can take care of people in the wild, with all kinds of problems? I'm very confident that the way that the computer science world and the clinical world are starting to kind of merge and not be afraid of each other, etc., trust one another, respect one another's contribution, to me that's where the exciting thing is, because I feel like it's not going to take 10, 20, 30 years to get there. Within the next 5 years, we will have comprehensive strategies to take care of people who are suffering from all kinds of things. So I would say that's where I'm excited most now, is to say, like, let's find those those solutions and really prioritize them collectively and find out how to tweak those as opposed to sort of continuing on in some of the ways. And I think this sort of thing also will help the drug development pipeline be really more streamlined to solving problems that humans need solved, where you can couple them with software and finding the most efficient times to deliver certain kinds of therapies. So as someone who's sort of still kind of entering this, I feel like there's a lot of things to be excited about.